On the night of July 22nd, 2007, the usually quiet suburban town of Cheshire, Connecticut would be forever scarred by one of the most brutal and senseless acts of violence the state has ever seen. What began as an ordinary day for one family would quickly descend into an unimaginable nightmare.
My name is Mary Lyons. I'm the banking center manager. We have a lady who is in our bank right now who says that her husband and children are being held at their house. The people are in a car outside the bank. She is getting $15,000 to bring out to them that if the police are told, they will kill the children and the husband. Her name is Jennifer Pettit, P-E-T-I-T.
Okay, she still is in the bank?
Yes, she is.
Okay, she's being held, her husband and family is being held?
Yes.
At their house?
Yes. They're tied up. She said they drove her here. I'm trying to look and see where she's gone. She went outside, but I don't... Oh, wait, I see her walking now. She is petrified.
Meet the Pettit family. William Pettit, a respected physician who worked as an endocrinologist. His wife Jennifer Hogg Pettit, a kind-hearted nurse who also battled MS, and their two daughters, Michaela, an 11-year-old with a passion for baking, and Haley, their 17-year-old daughter, a sweet and thoughtful teenager who had dedicated time to raising money for MS research in honor of her mother. It was a day like any other when Jennifer and Michaela left for the grocery store. They had planned to cook dinner together when they returned, a simple family meal after a long day. But fate had other plans. Unbeknownst to Jennifer and Michaela, their every move was being watched by two men who were lying in wait, ready to make their move. Joshua Komisarjevsky and Stephen Hayes, two men with dark and twisted criminal backgrounds, were watching the Pettit home. Joshua, an ex-convict who had spent time in prison for a series of burglaries, had been eyeing the family's home for days. On that fateful evening, he noticed Jennifer and Michaela at the grocery store. Something about them just caught his attention. Little did they know that this casual encounter would lead to unspeakable violence. Joshua had a disturbing habit. He would break into homes and listen to the occupants breathing as they slept. He had been released from prison just 2 months earlier, having served 5 years for home invasions instead of the 9 years he was originally sentenced to. Before they even set foot in the Pettit home, the two men exchanged text messages detailing their stake plans. They met up at a local bar and over beers discussed what they were about to do. Then, at approximately 3 a.m., they made their way to the Pettit residence. The two men sprung into action. They quietly approached the Pettit home, sneaking into the garage and finding an unlocked door that led them inside. Once in, Joshua grabbed a nearby baseball bat and made his way upstairs to the master bedroom, where William Pettit was sleeping on the couch, unaware of the terror awaiting him. With no warning, Joshua struck William in the head, over and over again. The brutal blows knocked the wind out of him and sent him into a haze of pain and confusion. William attempted to fight back, but it was no use. He was quickly overpowered by the two men, who tied him up with zip ties and dragged him to the basement, where he was left bound and helpless. Upstairs, Jennifer, Michaela, and Haley were not safe either. The men made their way to their rooms and bound their hands and feet with tight ropes, rendering them unable to escape. Jennifer and the children were held at gunpoint, completely at the mercy of the two strangers. They had been abruptly awoken in the middle of the night, terrified and unaware of what was to come. But for Joshua and Stephen, this wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. They had far darker plans. Their goal wasn't just money. and as the minutes passed, their sadistic desires started to take form. The men ransacked the house, looking for anything valuable they could steal. They found Jennifer's checkbook, but it wasn't enough. They needed more. Stephen forced Jennifer to drive to a nearby bank, where she withdrew $15,000 from the family's account. It wasn't enough for them. Stephen then demanded she return home to fetch more money. But Jennifer, realizing the dire situation, saw her opportunity. While she was at the bank, she discreetly passed a note to the teller, alerting them to the hostage situation. The bank employee quickly dialed 911, though they were unaware that time was quickly running out for the Pettits inside the house.
I will watch and see what kind of car she gets into. I'm in my office with the lights off. My teller said that she saw the driver. He had a black hood over a hoodie and a baseball cap on.
I'm going to keep you on hold for another couple minutes, right?
Okay.
What no one knew at the time was that police arrived at the house within minutes. They were stationed outside, waiting, completely unaware that the horror inside was only escalating. Back at the house, Joshua took the terror to a whole new level. While Stephen was gone, he sexually assaulted Michaela. He spoke to her as if they were having an innocent conversation, asking her about school, things she liked, before using scissors to cut her clothes off. He assaulted her twice and even took graphic photos after raping her. In a twisted act of control, he changed her clothes afterward, as if trying to erase what he had just done. By this point, Joshua had a problem. He had left DNA evidence on Michaela. The men knew they had to get rid of any trace of their crimes. But then, when Stephen returned, he was enraged. He saw police officers moving around outside the house and realized that Jennifer had alerted the bank. Feeling betrayed and panicked, he strangled Jennifer to death. But even that wasn't enough. After killing her, he raped her lifeless body. That's when they made the horrifying decision to burn the house down. They doused the house in gasoline. Michaela and Haley were still tied up, alive. Haley, in a desperate attempt to escape, managed to free herself, but it was too late. The flames and smoke had already engulfed the house. She collapsed at the top of the stairs, overcome by toxic smoke. Both girls, trapped and unable to escape, died of smoke inhalation before the flames could even reach them. Meanwhile, William Pettit, despite his grievous injuries, had managed to crawl out of the basement and reach his neighbor's yard. Bloodied and barely conscious, he gasped for help. His escape was the turning point. Within moments, officers spotted the Pettit family's vehicle speeding away from the burning house. Joshua and Stephen didn't get far. They crashed into a police cruiser and were immediately taken into custody. What followed was a trial that shocked the nation. The men blamed each other, but the overwhelming evidence left no doubt. They were both guilty. It was revealed that both Joshua and Stephen had suffered sexual abuse as children, but this did little to sway the jury. Joshua's background was especially chilling. He had been adopted into a loving family, a home of art and literature. He had aspirations of becoming an architect and was known for his photographic memory. But despite these promising beginnings, his demons had consumed him. Both men were sentenced to death. However, their sentences were later commuted to life in prison without parole when Connecticut abolished the death penalty. In the aftermath of the trial, William Pettit, though broken by the loss of his family, would go on to find some form of solace.
Well, first of all, thank you for all coming out today to honor the memory of the girls. I really like to say thank you to people from all over the state of Connecticut and all over the country. We've been surrounded with love and cards and flowers and prayer from east to west and north to south. I met Jen at Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh for med. She was a new nurse and I was the know-it-all third-year medical student. I was trying to correct Jen on how to take the blood pressure the correct way. Since I had about 3 minutes of experience at that point. But it became clear pretty quickly that she knew more about pediatrics and how to care for kids than I had ever known.
He became an advocate for victims of violence, working tirelessly to ensure that the memory of his loved ones lived on. He eventually remarried and had another child, but the pain of that night will never fade. The tragedy of the Pettit family remains one of the most haunting stories of the decade, a stark reminder of how quickly the fabric of our lives can unravel. The fact that police were just outside while Jennifer was being strangled and Michaela was being assaulted, and that the two girls were still alive as gasoline was poured over their home, makes this case all the more horrifying.
Some police officers were actually at the scene within seconds or minutes of when Stephen Hayes and Jennifer Pettit get back to the house. They had the phone number of the house early on. Nobody made a call. Nobody knocked on the door. 9:56, two suspects are moving into Chrysler. 9:57, there is a fire also at the scene. The initial call comes in at 9:21. This is over a half an hour later. They were actually at the scene for 30 minutes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Crime Alley Documentaries. Join us next time as we continue to unravel the darkest tales from the depths of human depravity. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, the nightmare can strike when you least expect it.
You know, it just makes me want to cry. Jennifer, Haley, and Michaela, they were kind and they were sweet. They looked out for other people, they cared about other people, and spent their time helping people. So for them to suffer, you know, horrific deaths seems incredibly unjust. I mean, it would seem incredibly unjust for anybody, but obviously they were the three people that I knew and loved the best in the world, and it's just the opposition of the just absolute evil that attacked us versus the goodness that they represented. It's just worlds apart.
Please leave any theories or comments you might have for us down below. We're really interested to know what you think about this case.